that's what I encourage so many business owners to do, is take a step back and realize the time that you have put in to your industry, honing your skills, honing your craft. You are the one bringing the skill, and you got to believe that about yourself. You got to be your own biggest fan to start with.
You're listening to the Profit by Design podcast, episode 30. You work hard in your business. On the Profit by Design podcast, we ask the big question: what has your business done for you lately? Hi, I'm Dr. Sabrina Starling, the business psychologist, the author of How to Hire the Best, and your co-host on the Profit by Design podcast. Weekly, my co-host, Mike Bruno, and I bring you tips, tools, and strategies from our own experiences and from the experiences of our guests, who are entrepreneurial thought leaders and real-life entrepreneurs, all to support you in making intentionally profitable and sustainable business decisions to live the lifestyle you desire. Hey, Profit Designers, we made it. We're at episode 30. And if you've been listening for a while, you know what that means. We're doing a drawing on today's episode and announcing the winner of a Profit by Design podcast t-shirt, a signed copy of my book, How to Hire the Best, and the Pumpkin Plan. And to enter that contest, all you had to do was leave us an honest review on iTunes or whatever platform you're listening to us on, and then let us know about it in the Profit by Design podcast Facebook group. So thank you to each and every one of you who have done that. It's so important for us to have these reviews because it helps us to get discovered by other entrepreneurs who need to hear this information. And that's really why we're doing what we're doing here on the podcast, is we are sharing and educating. We're sharing our School of Hard Knocks experiences and the things that we're learning as we grow our businesses. And the more entrepreneurs we can share this with and bring into our conversations in the Profit by Design podcast Facebook group, the better we all become. So thank you all for doing that. And I want to share with you that Brittany Shore is our winner. So congratulations, Brittany. You are winning a Profit by Design podcast t-shirt. You get to pick pink or black. Just let me know. And we're also sending you a signed copy of How to Hire the Best and the Pumpkin Plan. So, Profit Designers, on today's episode, you're going to listen in on a conversation Mike and I have with Tom Reber, who is the host of the Contractor Fight Podcast. We get into a discussion around mindset and how our mindset impacts us in several key areas of our businesses, including pricing our services, the sales process, and how we deal with hiring and team. This is a very interesting discussion, and I think it's going to generate some aha moments for you as you listen. So Mike and I invite you to leave us some comments about the episode and what it makes you think about in the Profit by Design Facebook group. Tom Reber is the host of the Contractor Fight Podcast, which currently reaches tens of thousands of contractors around the world through the podcast, his YouTube channel, Contractor Fight TV, social media, and private workshops. Tom is a Marine Corps veteran and lives in Manitou Springs, Colorado. So Tom, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's good to talk to you again.
Oh, yeah, I'm excited. So you have a coaching and consulting company and you work with contractors, and you hit on some really big topics that I think so many, not just contractors, but business owners in general struggle with. And one of those is right off the bat, toxic mindsets. And I'm really curious, when somebody specializes in mindset work, I know I do too, and it comes through my own experience. So I'm wondering, how did you come for yourself? What was the moment in time when you realized that mindset was a critical issue?
You know, it's funny. I think I realized it a few different times through life, but I never really paid attention to it. You know, there are little spots through life, you know, whether it was in my time playing football, it was in the Marine Corps, things like that, where I would put my mind on something and then it would happen. You know, like I remember going to Marine Corps boot camp, and I remember telling my dad, I'm picturing myself being the honor grad. I'm not coming home unless I'm the honor grad and all this other stuff. And I put that vision in my head. And then, you know, 3 months later or whatever it was, bam, I'm the dude who's the honor grad. And I didn't really understand what was happening. And it's been through the last couple decades that I've realized that, this is probably old news to a lot of people, but it's as simple as what you put your focus on, what you give importance to is generally what you're going to get in your life. And I've just been fascinated by that over the past several years. And that's kind of the foundation of everything that we do in the contractor fight is, that battle that we're fighting every day starts between your ears.
That is so true. So what are the biggest battles that you see contractors fighting between their ears?
What they're worth. Hands down, that the thing that's front and center for me popped into my mind immediately when you asked that question. I see so much head trash or whatever you want to call it around being confident in being able to charge what you're worth or talk about money or take a stand. It could be simple things like, Mike, I know you're a builder and stuff in the industry, like guys will put a contract together with payment terms. And then when it comes time to get a progress payment, they chicken out and won't ask for their money. It's those little things because they have this, crap in their head that is making them feel like, oh, it's not fair to the customer and this and that. And I always tell guys, I go, well, flip that around. What if you didn't hit one of the milestones on the project? You think they wouldn't be in your ear getting, asking and demanding for what they wanted? So I really want contractors and really any entrepreneur and business owner to just take a step back and realize that, when you have an agreement with somebody and we're going to work together, they're hiring you because you're the expert. And one of the examples I give all the time is if I'm going to go get knee surgery, I almost said that pilot, that surgeon walks in the room like a fighter pilot. He's got some swagger, he's going, this is what you're going to do. And you're not going to eat here and you're going to rest here and they know what they're doing because they've put the time in. Well, that's what I encourage so many business owners to do is take a step back and realize the time that you have put in to your industry, honing your skills, honing your craft. You are that. You are the one bringing the skill and you got to believe that about yourself. You got to be your own biggest fan to start with.
It's confidence.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Oh yeah. Real quick. What do you think is the contributing factors to that lack of confidence?
Well, it's funny when I speak to groups, I actually talk about confidence and a lot. And right out of the gate, I think so many people don't intentionally work on building their confidence. They just try to let it happen. And so one of the ways that you would intentionally build your confidence is first and foremost, you got to keep the promises that you make to yourself. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you're throwing another brick on that wall of confidence. And every time you don't keep a promise to yourself, you take it away. So for instance, if you say, I'm going to get up in the morning and go to the gym and you do it, you've kept a promise to yourself. And that's the thing. If you can't keep a promise to yourself, you're going to have a hard time keeping all the other promises you make to the world. And that dings at your armor. Every time that I got to make these prospecting calls, right? We all do that. We all say, this week, I'm going to make 10 prospecting calls or 100 prospecting calls or whatever it might be. If you don't do it, it jacks with your brain and it steals away some of your confidence. So that's the first thing. Second thing is you got to be super picky about who you're hanging out with every day.
Oh, yes.
I've been fortunate to hang around people that are way more successful than me, that have believed in me when maybe I didn't believe in myself. And so, we've heard the old, you become the average of the 5 you hang with. So that's huge. And then I think finally it's our confidence grows when we're uncomfortable. So I encourage our audiences, our workshops and things like that to overdose on discomfort. Okay. So whatever you're afraid of, go just fire hose it on yourself. Let's just dive in because every time you get uncomfortable, you raise the bar or you raise the ceiling of how far you can go. And so I think just those 3 things, if you just did those 3 things on a regular basis, you would see your confidence grow.
I'm feeling uncomfortable already, Tom.
No doubt.
It's Friday and I'm wanting to rest and you're telling me I've got to get uncomfortable.
Well, it's like a muscle in the gym, right? And if the muscle won't lift any more weight if you don't put it under stress.
Absolutely. And, I think that's it. Mike, you were going to say something? Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, in my own experience, I think in my younger years, I felt like there was a sense of, or a lack of worthiness, right? Mm-hmm. I always felt like, if somebody was upset or complaining or trying to change my payment plan or do anything, that it was me not conforming to the way that it should be, right? So my confidence level was, constantly chipped away at, or like your point, you're dinging the armor by not standing for your own beliefs and what you believe in and how to, push things forward, right? So when somebody would change, they don't leave me a check, I would sit there and get sad about it and beat myself up of why I didn't get the check, right? Instead of just holding to the system and the contract and really my beliefs of I'm here as a professional doing what I need to do. I need to be paid. And it's not tomorrow, it's today, because I deserve to be paid for the work that I did.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, again, just flip it around. And I'm not trying to make consumers out to be the bad guy or anything like that, but what happens when a contractor or a business doesn't fulfill what they were supposed to fill? You're getting bashed online, 2020s in your driveway with a movie camera, and all this other stuff. It's like, so just flip it around. All I'm asking is people to honor the agreement that we made and fight for yourself and for your business. You make a lot of sacrifices as a business owner, and man, you deserve to get paid. We all come into this business thing with some sort of money head trash, one way or the other. And, I've had a ton of it. I grew up in a family where, no one ever made more than like 40 grand a year. Debt was all over the place. Gambling was an issue with some of my family members. I can go on and on. Bankruptcies. So that was my worldview of money. I never believed that I could make money until I decided to make a choice that I'm going to make money. And that was actually the product of me hanging around different people.
Yeah, so that kind of ties into where I want to go next and what I want to explore with you next, because we have to get our mindset right before we're able to make money, and not just make the money, but keep the money that we make. And you have an article online that really is very provocative, and it hits home on something that Mike and I have been talking about quite a bit lately on the Profit by Design podcast, and that is your gross profit margin and managing for profit, and especially when it comes to your team and man hours and watching the productivity. So you have this article, How to Increase Profits in Less Than 1 Month. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's funny you brought that up. I wrote that a long time ago. I had done so many things on this topic through the years, but at the end of the day, profit is the result of planning for profit. Making a profit is a choice. And a lot of business owners, we jump into the trade or whatever the thing is that we do, and we sell the job, and then we just go out and do the work, and we never really take the time to reverse engineer what a win looks like. And so, I've just found, my own businesses and people that we help, that if you want to turn your money situation around really, really quick, the fastest way that I've seen to do that in most cases is just focus on your gross profit. You've got a $10,000 project, takes you $6,000 in cost of goods to do it. You got $4,000 left. That's a 40%. Well, your life's going to be easier if you can make that 40% a 45 or a 50 or a 55. And because you're still selling the same job, but how can we create a great plan? Obviously it starts with selling at the right price, but then also some great pre-planning at the beginning of the project and really thinking through how we're going to approach this thing. If you just focused on that, I've seen people, literally jump 20, 30 percentage points in a month or so, just because they made that their focus.
And in the article, you talk about the number one area that gross profit is lost is through direct labor costs and how expensive labor is. And that's my area where I really get excited, because
that's your sweet spot, isn't it?
It is my sweet spot. And when we sit down and we look at the lack of profit in a new client's business, one of the very first big gaping areas that's sucking the profit right out is that payroll. And so in your experience, you have some good pointers around how to manage labor costs and the investment and how to get employees invested in the profit of the company. So can you share some of that?
Yeah, it's funny, the whole labor thing, makes me think of, you've probably heard of the Parkinson's law.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So as a refresher.
As a refresher.
Basically the time made available for a task will be the time used for that task. All right. And so I remember years ago in my first company, it was a painting company. We used to put my crew in this house and I would go, we got to get this done this week or whatever. And it never really gave any clarity around the expectations and how it was bid. And then I started learning about this gross profit thing and man hours and stuff and Parkinson's law. And I'm like, so then I started assigning times, and I basically told the guys, it was about half the time that we had been taking, but I gave them a target, and you know what happened? We hit it. And, right out of the gate, you got to have clear expectations for how long things are going to take. Because, you could bid this job at 100 man hours. And if you come in at 101 man hours, you're over budget. It's that simple. And those things get away from us because, quite frankly, most business owners are not having, just a simple operations meeting each week. They're not having a pre-job planning meeting to talk about expectations. They're not training their employees on how to think and how to approach things. I think when we can teach our people how to think, efficiency goes up. And then the other big thing here is I encourage people to do everything you can to pay for the best people out there and pay them the most amount of money, because the best people are going to be the most efficient. They're going to be the best thinkers, and they're going to make you money in the long run, which is going to keep your labor costs down.
Yes. Yes, yes, and yes. That is so true. And what I'm aware of too is that means we have to charge appropriately to cover those payroll expenses. So, we can pay for the best team members that we can afford, and we can probably get away with fewer team members on the team. So that does have some washout right there already. But then we need to make sure the margin is in there when we're pricing.
Right. Well, listen, I had 12 employees at one time. I had up over 20 at one point, but I remember this one day we called it Black Monday in my painting company years ago. I'll spare all the details, but I ended up firing 7 of my 12 employees in 20 minutes.
Oh my goodness.
And right on the job site.
Wow.
And I called my business partner at the time and I said, dude, I got good news and I got bad news. He goes, what's the good news? I said, I've taken back control of the company. And he says, what's the bad news? I said, we only got 5 guys left. But here's the thing. Those 5 guys, they were the winners. The 7 I got rid of were toxic. They were complaining. They were this, they were that. And I immediately turned to the 5 guys. I gave them all a raise. And within days, our efficiency went up. We were producing more work, higher quality work, higher profit margin right then and there, just because we made a commitment to only allow the winners to stay on the team.
Boy, that takes so much courage.
I was just fed up. I wish I could say it was this brilliant move of courage in my life, right? But honestly, I was just fed up, and I'm like, I can't keep living this way. I'm not somebody's babysitter. You're grown men, do your dang job. And we've been really clear on job descriptions and what it takes to win. And we've trained you and all this other stuff. And if you're not going to take advantage of the opportunities that we give you to grow, then get out of here. I think that for me was the turning point, not only in that business, but in everything I do now in the Contractor Fight. You got to have some clear non-negotiables of who gets to work in your company. And I don't mean just the skills, carpentry or whatever they're doing. I'm talking like character stuff. And so, for example, my number one non-negotiable for somebody who works in any of my businesses is they have to be a positive human being, positive and generally a happy human being. Business is hard enough without being surrounded by negative people. So if you're not positive, doesn't mean you can't have a bad day, but are you a glasses half full person? Then you're going to fit here. Another big thing, non-negotiable, is you have to be competitive, because, and this is just me as a business owner, I don't typically respect people that aren't competitive and don't have a massive work ethic. All right. And so I just don't want to be around people that don't want to work and don't want to be better. And then the other non-negotiables, you got to be coachable. Everybody in our companies are coachable. They're people that want to grow. They want to get better. And I found that just with those things, and then the final thing is always respect. They have to be somebody who just is fundamentally a respectful person. So we had this guy we were going to hire once, and literally about to offer him the job, and our office manager walked in the room, and he hadn't met her yet. And I introduced him, and he didn't stand up, and call me old school or whatever. But I'm like, and he was going to be a sales guy for me. And
oh, wow.
It wouldn't have mattered what he was, but I remember just going, all right, no. And he had all the skills. He had the experience. He could close deals. But I'm like, no, we have our non-negotiables. If you don't stand up when a woman comes in the room and introduce yourself, it could have been a man for all I care. Stand up. He shook her hand and stuff, but he was sitting down, and it bothered me. Just rubbed me the wrong way. And I'm like, I'm not inviting that into my business, is really what it came down to.
That is such a subtle behavior, but the implications are huge. And you just spelled it out. Like you saw the writing on the wall, how this was going to cause problems down the road in your company. Mm-hmm. And as I was listening to you go through what's the characteristics someone needs to have to work for you, and you said competitive, and I thought, oh, okay, so everybody has to be competitive. That could get a little dangerous with everybody competing against each other. And then you continued, and it's the blend of competitive, coachable, and respectful. That's a unique blend in an individual, and it usually equates to humbleness. And the competitiveness usually becomes bettering our best rather than trying to better others and stomp on people on the team.
Absolutely. I do not want an environment where backstabbing each other and stuff. And listen, I've been Marine Corps, and I obviously know how important it is to have a team and have people who have your back. I coach high school football. I have for 17 years, and I tell my players, I said, one of the best things you could do for your teammates is selfishly execute your own job. All right. So if my job is to block this guy, if I just focus on doing my job and don't worry about you doing your job, and we all have that mentality, we're going to be successful. And so, team is massively important, especially in business.
So you have a culture contract. Can you talk a little bit about what's involved in a culture contract?
Yeah. First it's being intentional. You're probably familiar with this. Harvard did a thing a million years ago, and it was called like the service profit chain. And it was some study these guys did. And I've read on this and done some things, but over time I put together what I call the profit path. And so if you imagine profit is the, pot at the end of the rainbow, right? And there's, some things that have to come before that. Well, the very first thing in a business is you got to have strong leadership. And then the next thing is you have to have a strong culture that is driven by that strong leadership. And so we all have a culture, but what I've found is most companies, unless you're super intentional about this, you're just kind of getting the culture that you get instead of the one that you really want to get. And so I encourage people as the leaders of their organization to really be intentional about what I want to build, what it looks like, what are the expectations here, what are the things that we're going to tolerate. And we bring people onto the team that fit that. And it starts with those employee non-negotiables that I talked about. But then it's having that, it's kind of like that handshake with one another that says, I got your back, you got mine, and we're going to honor this commitment we made to each other. And if you're not that type of person, then you're just not going to fit here.
Wow.
And you don't need to be mean about it, right? I'm not, a lot of times I'm a type A personality. So everything that comes out of my mouth, it sounds like I'm mad at you. And I'm not. It's just, I'm just being direct. And I think, I'm not a Patriots fan, but the Patriots, you go, what's the Patriots culture? It's do your job. That's why Randy Moss goes there several years ago, and he's not a problem. He's not a distraction because he knew the culture. We had employees that guys would stop them on the street or in a restaurant. They'd see their company shirts and go, hey, you guys hiring? And my guys would take one look at them and go, yes or no, based on whether they thought the guy would fit in. If he didn't carry himself with confidence, if he wasn't clean and presentable, our guys would say no. So our guys were out there carrying that culture.
Let me ask you a quick question. Maybe you can help some of our listeners. So just to paint a picture, I'm like everybody else out there. I want to grow my business and I need heads, right? I need bodies. So I need people to work. But once I create my non-negotiables and I want to stick to them, how do I deal with my mind, right? So what do I need to do to ready my mindset for possibly taking a step back in my growth to get the right people on board before I push the pedal to the metal again to regrow? And that's probably a really fine line for a lot of people, right? Because you're building the business, you're organizing the business or strategizing the business and planning for the business you want. And it's hard sometimes to take a step back and say, you know what, right now I just don't have the people for it. Or, maybe I need to do this or do that. So what are some tips maybe for people that do have the wrong people on the bus or are contemplating hiring those wrong people because they need bodies? How do we teach them or help them navigate, taking the step back and then moving forward again?
That's a great question. And honestly, it's terrifying at times when you're in that position as a business owner. And I think we've all been there. We're like, man, if I could just have some bodies. I think if you've been in the game any period of time, you know that the wrong body is a lot more expensive than not having a body. And so I would encourage people. So when I run into that with people that we work with, the first thing I do is I make sure that they raise their prices. So if I'm going to be slower to grow my team, I've got to be capturing as much profit as I can, to make up for that and help me hit my break-even points on the overhead and all that other stuff. So I would encourage somebody to slow down and remember what they're trying to build. You're not a one-hit wonder in your business here. You're trying to build something that is a solid brand, and that's an investment. it takes some time and you're going to have to go through some people. I would encourage them to get chummy with other guys in their industry that have good businesses and, maybe subcontract some work out and some things like that, but other partnerships with other guys in the industry. In fact, I work with a lot of people in the water garden industry, koi ponds and stuff. These guys are the most giving people in the world. It's like they'll drive 8 hours to help one of their buddies build a waterfall and supply some labor for somebody. And they just freely give their guys back and forth because they understand the struggle. So, one of the big mistakes that we made and I made years ago was, we try to maximize before we optimize what we have. And so if you add a bunch of bodies, if you're growing your business and you haven't already figured out how to be as profitable as possible, then you're just going to grow the problems that you have. And so I heard a guy named Jesse Itzler. He's married to Sarah Blakely, who started the company Spanx. And he says there's 2 words he thinks of all the time, and it's remember tomorrow. The decisions I make today are going to impact me tomorrow. How do I want to feel about this tomorrow? And so I totally acknowledge that that's a tough spot when you have all this work lined up in front of you and you don't have the people. That's a crappy place to be. But quite honestly, I'd rather have that problem than have no work on the board. So,
well, and your solutions that you gave are out of the box and spot on. And I know they work. So I heard you say, raise your prices, which that's not conventional wisdom. When we're struggling, that's when we tend to we lose our confidence and we go to lower prices. So raise prices and then get to know the good guys in your industry and start building those relationships, jump in and offer support. And then you're going to be more likely to get support when you need it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and remember that you have a lot of resources in your own company. Your existing guys and gals are wise. They're smart. They're experienced. I remember we had this project years ago. We had to do this ungodly amount of work in a really short period of time. It was just one of those things that was happening. And remember, we pulled our whole team together and we said, guys, we know we are low on manpower here. This was a long time ago. This is, 10, 12 years ago. And I'm like, who has an idea of how we can be 5% more efficient in everything we do on this job? And our guys, our team put their heads together. And this goes back to those non-negotiables. When you have the right people, they're going to want to fix the problem. They're going to want to work together. They're going to push their egos aside. They're going to have a mature conversation. And the result was we actually finished this project. I want to say we had 3.5 days to do it. And we finished literally like 12 hours ahead of schedule because our guys, they put their heads together. So I see a lot of owners, you put all this pressure on yourself that you got to be the answer man for everything, and that's not the case. Put your own ego aside and don't be afraid to ask your team, how could we do this a little better? Who's got some ideas? And that group think is what's going to help you be more efficient as well.
Absolutely. There's another area that I know you have a lot of expertise around, and I want to have you talk about that with our audience here. And that is the point in time when you get a call from a prospect and you're having to say, okay, I need to come out and take a look. And the time suck that creates. And oftentimes you don't get compensated for that. So Can you talk a little bit about it? Because I know you teach on this in the Contractor Sales Academy. Can you talk a little bit about your philosophy and what you teach around this?
Absolutely. So, we teach a little bit of a unorthodox way of selling your services. And truly, there's elements here that could be applied to any industry. I could go sell websites and I can use this. Doesn't matter. So it all starts with understanding that people buy for their reasons, not your reasons. And they buy when they're ready, not when you're ready. And so everything that I'm about to share here with the sales process that we coach people on is based in respect for them and respect for you. It's rooted in respect. And it's based on just having an open and honest conversation. So I personally don't believe that sales is all about learning the latest Jedi trick to handle objections and things like that. It's about truly becoming a great listener, listening with empathy, saying what's on your mind in a way that resonates and connects with the other person, and really just being open and honest about all the typical things that most contractors won't talk about when they're talking to a prospect. Like, Mike probably seen it, like the contractor that goes out to somebody's house. They walk around and take notes. They have this great conversation. And what do? They go, well, let me go work it up. I got to go work it up and I'll email it over to you. It's like, you should never have to go work it up. at that point. So, and I get it. There's different scopes of work, different types of projects, things like that. So what we're really after here is protecting your time, because we've done some research over the last 5 years. The average home improvement contractor, we'll just talk home improvement contractor, spends about 4 hours doing a simple estimate. So that means phone call comes in. Yeah, I'd love to come out and see your house. And you run out there. So you drive there, you stand in the living room, you stand in the yard, you have the small talk, you walk around, you do your measuring, show and dance and whatever you're doing. And then you drive home, and then you type the thing up, and then you got the whole follow-up process, because now they're hiding from you because you sent them a price, and now it's like they're in witness protection and you can't find them. Okay. So this whole process, we find, takes, about 4 hours for the average guy. And so, one of my partners, he's a contractor. What did he have last year? He had 550 leads. So if you just take the 550 and you multiply it times 4, that's 2,200 hours. Now, he ain't going all 550, right? So let's just say he goes to 450. That's still 1,800 hours, which is 150 hours of the estimating game per month. So no wonder business owners are like, I don't have time to train my guys. I don't have time to market my business. I don't have time to have a meeting. I don't have time to do my books or whatever it is. So again, this is to protect our time. But here's the cool thing that we found over the past few years. When you tell a prospect that you're not going to run right out there and meet with them, and that you have a certain process that you follow, they're actually relieved, because they don't want to meet with one more contractor that's not a good fit for them, as much as you don't want to meet for a client that's not a good fit for them. They don't want to change their schedule, take time off work, or meet you at the dinner hour any more than you want to meet them if it's not going to be a good fit. So we teach guys to really, it's pre-qualification on steroids. It's called ShinFu, SHIN-FU. It was named after one of my business partners in the sales academy, Steve Shinholzer, because he had been using this process, and what was happening is he was selling 90 or 80% of his revenue a year. He was selling from his desk at home or sitting on his deck. Okay. And then basically he would just go out, and when it was time to meet the prospect in person, he would go out, and it was to collect a deposit check. And to basically confirm everything that they had talked about on the phone. So we teach people to do that in a way that's warm and welcoming, and not like, you're not a jerk about it. Some guys hear this and they go, okay, I'm going to start doing this. And somebody calls and says, hey, I want you to come out and give me a bid. And they're like, we don't go out and see people. Like they have this demeanor, and it's like, you got to have the right spirit of the conversation. We work really hard to help you work through the 4 levels of learning a new skill, which the first is unconscious incompetence. You're no good and you don't know it. And then you work all the way up to the 4th level, which is unconscious competence, where it's just second nature. These things roll out of your mouth. You learn to connect with people. You're seeing the world like you've never seen it before when you truly learn how to listen properly.
That's such a huge impact, just to recapture that time. And it's a matter of learning a mindset and some skills that would result in a significant recapture of time.
Well, the pushback is, you can't do that in my industry, Tom. You don't understand my customers. Or that might work in your area of the country, but it won't work in mine. Those are the things I hear. And it's just taking a step back and just going, okay, what do we really want to happen here? We just want to see if we're a good fit. We want to make sure that time that I spend standing in front of somebody, it's spent with somebody who's the best fit for me and my company. And, listen, we can buy a house. We can get a mortgage on our phone. And just think about that for a minute. You can get a mortgage on your telephone. Push a few buttons, Rocket Mortgage, boom, you're approved. I got approved for a truck loan a couple years ago on my phone. Pushed a couple buttons. So today's consumer, they're tired of the old song and dance that most contractors are doing. We had a customer experience guy named Steve Dorfman, worked with our academy for a while. And he's like, you got to remember, customers don't go to customer school. So if we don't take control of the sales process from the get-go, it sends a message that we're not confident in what we do. And the other cool thing is when somebody calls you and says, hey, we want to get a bid, you can go, I'll fast track this, but in the conversation, it's going to get to the point where I'm going to say, hey, would it be cool if I shared with you the process that we use, for all of our customers? Yeah, what's that? Well, it starts with a 15-minute phone conversation after you send me a couple pictures of your property. And you're taking control. You are respecting them and their time, And that's different than everybody else, because everybody else, it's going to take them 2 or 3 or 5 days to get out there. Then it's going to take them 2 or 3 or 5 or 2 weeks to get you a bid. And now you're just feeding into the stereotype that contractors are crappy communicators. They take forever to do things. They don't do what they say they're going to do. But you're the person being totally different, and it's refreshing for people.
And it's a clear process. I want to comment on something that you said that I hear a lot. And it's, that won't work in my industry, or that won't work in my part of the country. We're different. Profit designers, when you hear yourself say that, let that be a red flag. And that's an opportunity to shift the question from that won't work to how could I make this work?
Absolutely.
Because that's our learning opportunity right there. If it's working for somebody else, there's a good chance it could work for us. And I get curious when I hear myself say that, well, that won't work. I'm a coach. That won't work in my industry. I've learned to shift that for myself and start asking, how can I make that work? What would that look like in my business?
You know, here's the truth of it, all of us. The thoughts that you put into your brain become your beliefs. Your beliefs become your actions become your results. So if you're feeding your mind all the time that this can't work, then you're right. It ain't going to work. You got to be open to the possibility that there's just a different way. You know, my business partner, Steve, who Shin Fu's named after, he built and sold 30 years ago North America's largest swimming pool maintenance company. He had like 3,000 teenage lifeguards. They managed a couple thousand pools. I mean, it was crazy. Millions and millions of dollars. And he sold the company, retired, and then he opened up a water feature company. And he made a killing in this industry that a lot of guys weren't making any money. So like, you know, I'm talking like crazy profits, crazy amounts of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars in his pocket as the owner. And you ask him, you go, how did you do it? And the first thing he'll say is, I built my business in a vacuum away from all the other pond guys. Okay. Because they all had the same thinking going on. They were all like, there's no way you could charge that much for this. And he's like, the best thing I did out of the gate. Now he since has relationships with the industry and stuff, and he's well respected. But those first 10 years or so, he basically built his business away from all the people that had been in the business forever. And it was basically the thing that made him more successful than everybody else.
I love that. That's powerful. So, Tom, I know that you have a gift to offer our listeners that could be really helpful to them, and it touches on all the different things that we've talked on today here. So do you want to tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, absolutely. We have what are called our daily fight, and it's just tips on mindset and business and marketing and sales and leadership and all that stuff that come every weekday. And they're consumed in less than 2 minutes. So it's a quick read or a quick little video or audio that you'll get. And you can do one of two things. You could text 719-299-3852 and just put the word tips, TIPS, 719-299-3852, or you can just go to the contractorfight.com and you can join there as well.
Thank you, Tom. This has been such good, just overall mindset adjustment. That's what I am feeling today. A mindset adjustment from our conversation. Like a chiropractor.
Exactly.
So can I hijack you for one more minute?
Yeah.
Here's one of the things I wanted to point out. We have about 80 to 90,000 thoughts a day that run through our brains. Okay. Here's the thing. 90% of those thoughts are the same thoughts we had yesterday. So the game changer here is when you are intentional about the thoughts that you're putting into your brain, your RAS, reticular activating system, will bring importance to those things. So like, for example, I have a journal, and every morning I write down, I'm a magnet for money and success. That's one of the things I write. I write several affirmations, and I say these things out loud, and I'm intentionally putting these thoughts into my brain. And so whatever you are putting into your brain, see, remember, most of what we put in our brain is 90% of the stuff from the other day, and it's unconscious.
Yeah.
We're not intentional. And so if you want a quick turnaround in your life, your business, your health, and things like that, start taking control of the stuff you tell yourself every day.
It's so true. Very powerful.
Yeah, it is true. That's awesome.
Well, thank you, Tom. I'm glad we took that extra minute for you to share that with us.
Appreciate you having me, and you guys have a great day.
You too.
Thanks, Tom.
Hey, Profit Designers. We just heard Tom talking about the value of getting outside our own industry for really making our businesses stand out, and the importance of mindset and who we surround ourselves with. And it got me thinking about the retreat we just had here at my home, the Entrepreneurs Retreat Center. At Breakthroughs on the Bayou 4-week vacation retreat, we had all kinds of conversations going among builders and accountants and home health nurses and landscapers and coaches. The environment was so rich with us learning across industry about best practices, and at the same time, the awareness that we business owners experience the same things. No matter what industry we're in, there is so much commonality. It was such a refreshing experience for our participants. And I want to let you know, if you want to join us next year to have that experience yourself, that opportunity is right here at your fingertips, and there is no better time to jump in on this because we still have our super early bird savings in effect. So if you would like to join Mike McAllowitz and I at Breakthroughs on the Bayou 4-week vacation legacy retreat next year, March 2020, go ahead and get your application in now. There's a deposit. We will meet with you. We'll determine if you're a good fit. And if you're not a good fit, we will gladly refund your deposit to you. But right now is really the best time to get in. It looks like we're only going to have about 6 spots available. So our retreat fills very quickly. And it is an incredible experience. It's not just a few days that you come and gather with us. We support you throughout the year. And we work with you on creating the 4-week vacation in your business so that your business can run without your daily involvement. And as a matter of fact, if you want to get a sneak peek about some of what we do, go ahead and download my Jumpstart Guide to the 4-week vacation. That's also available for free at 4weekvacation.com.
Thank you for spending time with us today. Join our conversation in the Profit by Design Podcast Facebook group. Share your thoughts on today's episode, ask us questions, and let us know what you want to hear about next. Visit our website at profitbydesignpodcast.com to access resources from our sponsors and tools we've created for you. Subscribe to the show on whatever platform you're listening to right now. There's a subscribe button right there. Go ahead and hit it so that you always get a notification when we release a new episode. And finally, share our podcast with a friend if you know a friend who would enjoy it. Thanks again for listening. This is real life business. Keep your chin up, keep moving forward. You got this.